Good to see you. Thank you very much for making the time today.
Of course. Good morning, Vashi.
I wanted to start off on the prospect for evacuation of Canadians should it be necessary. I spoke with the ambassador to Lebanon this week. She told me there are 20,000 Canadians who are registered with the embassy. Does Canada have the capacity to evacuate that many Canadians should that be necessary?
Well, and yes, we do, Vashi, but I think it's going to be important to respond to the circumstances that may exist at that time. First of all, we don't believe that an incursion by Israel into Lebanon is imminent, but we are certainly concerned with the escalating violence that we're seeing in the region, and the indicators are concerning to us. We've been working now for months, Vashi, in order to put the resources in place and do the planning that was necessary to do whatever is required to get Canadians to safety. We've been working really closely with Global Affairs. I think the focus right now is still on working behind the scenes to try to facilitate a ceasefire and cessation of hostilities. But we have been getting ready for some time to provide whatever assistance Canadians may require.
And I will repeat that, something your government has said, which is to the Canadians who are there, do what you can to get out at the moment. So certainly I'm not trying to, say that that evacuation is something at the ready. I wonder if you could detail, or what you can detail, about the military's capacity in particular to assist with one should it be necessary, and whether or not there are resources that have more recently been moved into the region for that purpose.
Happy to update you on that. Actually, first of all, there are still commercial flights leaving the Beirut airport, 72 of them over the last 48 hours. And so we are still encouraging Canadians in the region to take a prudent step and to take advantage of the existing commercial flights that are available out there. Global Affairs has also been working to facilitate another commercial option with a charter aircraft that will enable up to a number of Canadians to leave on that aircraft. That should happen over the next 24 to 48 hours. And as well, I've recently authorized the deployment of 150 additional Canadian Armed Forces members into the region. And that's not just in Cyprus, but it's also, not just in Lebanon, but also in Cyprus and other parts of the region, because we also have to not just assist Canadians to get out of Lebanon, but we have to make sure that we can get them to a place of safety and then facilitate their onward movement wherever they may wish to go. But it's a scalable response that we are putting in place. We know that some people may just need some assistance to get to a place of egress, an airport or a port, and we are prepared to provide military-assisted departure. If the situation becomes more serious and hostilities don't enable that, there are other prudent steps that we have also put in place. We're working really closely with Lebanese authorities, but also with our allies in the region to facilitate that. But I need Canadians to also understand, if the situation deteriorated very significantly and very quickly, it may be very challenging to get them to a place where we can help them out of the country. And so we would like them to take the prudent steps now of getting to a place of safety, getting away from the area of potential hostilities. But Canada will be ready and prepared, and we've got resources in the region. There's been a great deal of planning over the past several months that we've made sure that we've got ships, planes, access to airports and runways, and we've been working really closely with our friends in the region to make sure that we can get them fairly quickly to a place of safety.
Just a very quick follow-up. Am I to interpret from that there are ships close by? I'm thinking back to 2006, of course. You mentioned Cyprus, the idea of ships taking Canadians from Lebanon to Cyprus. There was a delay in how long that eventually took to start back in 2006, one of the primary conclusions of a Senate report that was done to investigate that. Are there ships close by so that doesn't end up being the case again?
And the answer is yes. There's one that has been contracted by Global Affairs. We've actually had that contract in place now for several months. We've done it with our allies. But there's a limit to how many people will be able to get to port and then to get out of the country and back and forth to a place of safety. And you're right, we've been working very closely with the Cyprus authorities to make sure that we can facilitate that. And we've got people in Cyprus to make sure that can all happen. Vashi, to be really clear, we all learned a great deal of lessons from the experience in 2006. All of those lessons have been applied to our planning and preparation for the possibility of this event. In many respects, there has been a lot of forewarning of this event. We've had the opportunity to tell Canadians to get to a place of safety. Unfortunately, some people have not made that good decision, but it doesn't relieve Canada of its responsibility to be there for Canadians if they need us. And so we'll be prepared to do that. I just want people to understand it will take some time in order for us to facilitate their departure and in order to do it safely. And it'll all be determined by the circumstances. But we've been planning and preparing for this eventuality should it become necessary now for several months. We've deployed Canadian Armed Forces members and Special Forces members into the region. They've been working tirelessly for the past several months to get ready for what we believe may be necessary. We're all hoping that it isn't necessary and that the diplomatic efforts to end the cessation of hostilities and to initiate a ceasefire will be successful, but we are also prepared for the worst outcome.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you, based on the information you have available to you and that you can share with Canadians, how likely you think that scenario is. And by that, I mean, an all-out war, essentially, between Israel and Hezbollah.
I think it's still avoidable, and I think there's really important work. And I know my government, our Foreign Affairs Minister, my Prime Minister, have been working, frankly, very tirelessly working with our allies. But the two sides are still firing rockets at each other. We are monitoring all of the indicators of an imminent incursion into the region. And we don't believe we're at that point, but certainly we are very concerned about the escalating violence. We believe that a ceasefire is necessary. And we've called for one for some time. It's very difficult to facilitate negotiation, stability, and peace in the region while they're still firing rockets at each other. So a ceasefire is what's necessary. But we'll continue to work for peace and stability in the region along with our allies and both protagonists in this conflict. But at the same time, we will be prepared if those efforts are unsuccessful to do what is necessary to make sure that we keep Canadians safe.
Just before I let you go, Minister, I did want to ask you about the trip you're headed to Washington on, a meeting essentially of foreign ministers focused on Daesh or ISIS, as our viewers will know it. Your trip follows recent events in this country, including the arrest of someone who was plotting a major terror attack and who had allegedly participated in an ISIS video in which he was shown dismembering a prisoner before becoming a Canadian citizen. What message does that send our allies whom you're about to meet?
Well, first of all, Canada played a very significant role over the past decade in the diminishment of ISIS's capabilities to engage in terrorist activity and military incursions in Syria and Iraq. The problem hasn't entirely gone away. It has been significantly diminished as a result of the hard work of Canada and its allies in this area, but we are still seeing that ISIS represents a threat in both Syria and Iraq, and we're also seeing its emergence in some of the Sahel region of Africa. And so it remains important that allies continue to get together, coordinate our efforts. Canada is continuously reevaluating the resources that we put into the Middle East region, but Canada has contributed and will continue to contribute to the fight against Daesh because the threat, quite frankly, Vashi, has not gone away.
What about the resources, Minister, just final question, in sort of screening for that threat here in this country based on the case I just posed to you?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think it's really important that all our national security intelligence agencies and law enforcement have the tools and the support that they need to do their important job of protecting Canadians and keeping these people out of our country. And unfortunately, there are limits to some of the work that they can do, and we have seen instances where people have been allowed into Canada that should not have been allowed into Canada, and therefore it's really important that law enforcement have the ability to monitor, track these individuals, and deal with them when their behaviors break our laws or put Canadians
Minister,
at
I'll
risk.
leave it on that. Right. Pardon me. I will leave it on that note, the second note. Thank you very much for your time today. I appreciate it, and safe travels.
Thank you very much, Vashi.